Captain's Log Supplemental. Time is a strange thing to ones like Litharian and myself. Time to go home? Doubly so. For anyone else it would have been many lifetimes that has passed since returning to visit Typhon, but for me, it was as if it were only yesterday. Glowing in its orbit still remained Typhon's twin moons, Ashla and Bogun, holding their orbits with respect to the light and shade of the planet. But I could not help but feel like there may have been much that has changed upon the surface of the ancient world since my last visit. Arriving at the Master's retreat, I was humbly surprised to see that although none of the faces were familiar, many of the civic structures and statues, after so many thousands of years, were still standing. The Gnarls were buzzing with activity, with fresh students and masters alike being directed to protect the newcomers and travelers from some mutant creatures called flesh raiders. However, I had not come to fight off wild animals, for a far greater threat was at hand, of which required me to request an audience with the Jedi Council, if there were any of them left to speak with. Satil Shan, the previous Grand Master of the Order, had decided to take a leave of absence. Some say she left the Order entirely after learning much about the balance of the Force during her exile on Odessen with the spirit of Darth Mar as her counsel. With the Grand Master having left the Council and the galaxy still recovering from the war with Sakul, followed by rising tensions with the Empire once more, there was no telling who would be seated at the table I was sent to seek an audience with. Standing in the entrance as I approached the temple, stood a temple guard standing as still as the statues featured in the gardens out front. Like a picture from a hollow journal, it reminded me of my early days as a student, in such a hurry to stand and guard something that I did not fully understand myself. After enduring a room filled with noise and hot air for over an hour, I finally delivered my invitation to the few Jedi who had gathered to hear me out. The council was not present, and therefore no one was in any position of authority to speak or respond. I withdrew myself from the chambers to see our statue friend still in perfect posture, but for a moment his duty broke, and with a glance I knew that things were about to change. We could all sense something big was about to happen. So Litharian called a meeting with those who remained loyal to the neutrality and cooperative spirit of the Alliance, Sith, Jedi, smugglers, and ex-military alike. Officials from both the Republic and Empire had openly refused the invitation, and that only placed more doubt in the minds of those gathered about what the nature of this meeting might be. Standing around the ensemble were commemorative statues to the heroes of the Alliance, Empire, and Republic, aiming to display a certain universal code of ethic to the space. But despite these symbols of courtesy, it was clear that anxieties were high among the few who had managed to arrive with any dignity intact. Kimberly Loken, codename Morning Star, is the prominent daughter of the famed Dr. Loken, who is known across the galaxy as one of the head scientists behind the questionable advances in alien manipulation, most notably his experiments with the Rakghoul. Morningstar had come at a last minute, quite against the wishes of her father and the Republic dignitaries who she was attached to, upon receiving a warm welcome from Litharian. Standing firm and confident, she cast a bright light into a dark room full of uncertainty. Next to arrive were three others, a hot-headed ex-commando with a genius for critical strategy, and two Jedi who had decided to come on their own accord. One of the Jedi wore a mysteriously familiar Temple Guardian's mask, in an effort to maintain their anonymous presence in the room. As the newcomers found their seats, Letharian ushered her first words to the group.
I want to thank you all for standing by me. We have survived so much, overcome so much. That was only possible because of all of you. The galaxy is as chaotic as ever, but if we stand by one another, we'll find our way through.
She then went on to state that she would be committing her forces to assisting the Jedi on Ossus, requesting that they join her in establishing a team dedicated to protecting and replicating the latest food production technology that the Jedi were developing. One of the lone Jedi refused, saying it was too risky, and that it would attract the attention of the Empire and conflict would ensue. However, having already seen the risks of food shortages causing untold piracy along the edge of the core worlds, the risk of attracting unwanted attention appeared to be an equal threat. Letharian knew that either way, the future was a risk, and if she had to, she would walk this path alone, like so many other paths that had come before. But then to her surprise, as she turned to glance at those who remained in council, one by one they stepped forward to follow her. She smiled and turned on her heel with a glow of respect for those walking next to her. She was not alone. Arriving on Ossus was a sight to behold, a vast red barren desert world with fierce winds and brewing storms. Yet nestled in a few of the low-lying valleys were these brilliant splashes of green, popping up from industrialized farming structures that were compact and state-of-the-art. Letharian was met by a distinguished guest, Master Nostaral, who was the official historian of the Order and leading Jedi authority on the project. She invited him aboard the Green Odyssey to gain access to her vast database of designs compiled by both factions during the Alliance. Working together, along with the many volunteers from the Alliance, it appeared as if it was a bright chapter on the horizon for a time of peaceful rebuilding and food for all. But then the Empire came.
That would be them now.
It was a nightmare, with swift and brutal attacks and an army of mutated Geonosians gone berserk. Darth Melora of the Dark Council led a vicious strike against the camps, and if matters were not already bad enough for the Jedi and their farms, Melora and the galaxy at large was in for a surprise that no one expected.
No, impossible.
Jedi Master Nostaral.
Darth Malgus. Alive and well.
Darth Malgus, seemingly back from the dead, took over the Imperial operation and kidnapped the old Jedi historian, taking him into Imperial custody. And as the skirmishes between the Empire and Republic continued to spread throughout the regions, it seemed as if Darth Malgus was not the only unwanted attention that had been brewing.